speakers. Professor Don Norman is Distinguished Professor and founder of Design Lab and Emeritus of the University of California. His topic title today is Design in the 21st Century. Then he is also a former Vice President of Advanced Technology at Apple and co-founder of the Nielsen Norman Group, Emeritus. He has 3 honorary degrees, is a member of the National Academy of Engineering, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, as well as an honorary fellow of the Design Research Society. In 2021, he received the British Sir Misha Black Medal for Distinguished Services to Design Education. His 21 books include Emotional Design, Design for Everyday Things, and Design for a Better World. Meaningful, sustainable, humanity-centered. The last book compelled him to co-create a charity, the Don Norman Design Awards. When you engage with Don, in person or online, my sense is it is someone who is quite approachable, very direct, and doesn't stand on formalities. But needless to say, Don, thank you. I know you just traveled over from Singapore. You're on your way to Taiwan. So clearing your schedule for this, we really do appreciate that. Can I invite you to join us for your talk? Thank you.
So I'm delighted to be here. And yes, this is a long trip for me. I started with a week in Singapore. You heard that I started a charity to reward people. I'll tell you more about that later. So we held a really successful meeting there. There's an international charity, so the meeting will be in a different country every year. And then I went to Malaysia. I went to Indonesia, where I got this jacket. So I'm wearing it because I will hardly ever get a chance to wear it. And now I'm here in Hong Kong, and then tomorrow, Dean Lee and I fly to Taiwan for yet another meeting. I am a model of whatever this is, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, multiple disciplinary. As you heard, the definitions are not clear. But I was trained as an electrical engineer. I have 2 degrees in electrical engineering. And then by accident, I ended up getting a PhD in psychology, but actually mathematical psychology, it was called in those days, which became cognitive psychology. Now, what was interesting was that as I changed my fields, what I do is I bring the knowledge of the previous field into the new field. And that is real interesting because, and this is at the essence of what it means to work across disciplines. What is sometimes obvious and simple and well-known in one field is considered revolutionary and brilliant in the other field. So if you want to be considered brilliant, just keep changing your fields all the time and bring the knowledge of one into the other, because the disciplines are now such specialized that people in one discipline don't understand what's in the other discipline. And even people in a field, like I'm a chemist, or I'm a computer scientist, or I'm a physicist, they don't understand what all the people in their own department do, because those departments all have many, many specialties. So if you're a good graphic designer, do you really understand what industrial designers do, or interaction designers do, or service designers do? No, not necessarily. We all have specialists. Now, the world is changing, hence design for the 21st century. We're in the middle of many, many revolutions. We have methods of manufacturing, new methods of manufacturing, especially basically 3D printing or additive manufacturing. We have new kinds of materials. We have new sensors that allow us to tell what's going on in the body, sometimes from outside the body, sometimes inside the body. New sensors in satellites, the drones and the satellites, so we can see what's going on in the earth, which is of critical importance for such fields as agriculture. We are seeing changes in communication. We're seeing changes in computation. And obviously, the big revolution today is generative AI. I'm saying the word generative because people often say we have a revolution in AI. No, we've had a revolution in AI for the last 20, 30 years. when you take a picture with your cell phone, when the first phones came out on mobile devices, I said, these will never, ever be able to take a good picture. And it's just not my opinion. It's the laws of physics. Because the receptor is so small, you'd be lucky to get a photon, a minimum amount of light on any given pixel. Well, how come we get such beautiful pictures out of our cell phones? And there are many different ways of doing it. And it's all AI. Because first of all, when you take the picture and you see the little rectangle around people's faces, that's AI. Second of all, what if the camera takes 10 pictures really rapidly? Oh, it's as if the area was 10 times larger. And the next thing is the systems, if you take and mix, you combine several adjacent cells, you get more light. And so you get a better picture, except it's very crude because you reduce the number of pixels. So you're able to both combine them in order to get more light, and then take them, just look at them individually in order to give you the sharp, crisp pictures you want. That's AI. It's very complex to do. So AI has changed the world, and is about to change the world more. Because in the past, we designed tools. Humans are tool makers. And we designed tools ever since we discovered how to make fire, how to use fire to give light, to give warmth, and to cook food. We couldn't cook food before that. And of course, we devised devices for catching animals. We devised all sorts of things which have changed the way that people behave. So we invent things that change how we behave, and when we change things, change how we behave, we open up the affordances that are possible, new ways of behavior, which therefore change us. So it's a circular thing. What we do changes the world, and the world then changes us. This new revolution in generative AI is different than any other one we've had before because it thinks. It's not a tool, it's a collaborator. And it's getting more and more powerful every day. So it's going to take away your jobs if you don't understand it. If you do understand it, it will make your jobs better. So this lecture is not about that, but I want you to know that this is the biggest revolution I think we've had since, I don't know, maybe the invention of printing and reading and alphabets. It's going to be very, very important. And and you have to learn how to use it. And one thing you have to learn is don't just ask a question. Tell it your whole history. Tell it why you are interested. Treat it as you just hired a new assistant who doesn't understand how you work, but is very anxious to help, but very naive. So you have to explain a lot. And then when the answer comes back, you have to, explain a lot more and do it differently. And you might be surprised at the results. Okay, transdisciplinarity. Let me go back to my structure. Design is a really interesting field. It doesn't have any particular knowledge. Designers don't know any deep content. And that is a major virtue. That's a good thing. When you know too much about a field, it's very hard to be creative. You understand what's going on, and now you're trying to be creative and have some new idea, but all that past education holds you back because that's how you've learned to think in the old way. And now you're trying to invent a new way, and it's really difficult. And what's good is when you're a beginner, is you don't know what other people have done, and you're free to start over again. One thing that I always do when I enter a new field is the first thing I do is write an important theoretical paper without reading the field, without knowing what's going on. It's just my opinion of what might be going on. And that, therefore, is very original. Now, it may also be completely wrong, so I don't tell people that I've written the paper, but I've written it. But now what I do is I study the field. I talk to people, I do some work myself, I read all the literature, and therefore I can go back and say, well, this argument that I made, it's been well studied and it's been shown to be wrong. Okay, take it out. Or this, it's people who already worked on it and it's actually a good idea. So I make sure I give credit to those people. And so, but I make sure though that I'm creative from the beginning. And as a teacher, I always worry about teaching too much, teaching a student too much, because it takes away some of the creativity. But designers don't have this kind of knowledge. What designers have is a method. We have a very powerful way of working, a very powerful way of putting things together. And that's what's important. Now, the reason that we really have to go across disciplines is because we don't have the special knowledge of the disciplines. So what we have to do is learn. We have to know enough about all of the disciplines to know which ones we have to work with for any given particular job, because the specialized disciplines are really necessary, but they can't really do very much in the world. Because in order to build something, create something that is actually usable, requires the knowledge from across the discipline. And that's the power of design. Because what we can do is understand which disciplines are needed, bring them in, and then act kind of like the conductor. We're going to take the different knowledges and put them together into a meaningful new way. That's powerful. But it also means that we have to learn to work with the disciplines, and we have to make sure that all disciplines are equal. No discipline is more important than the other one. Each person in a discipline often thinks their field is the most important one in the world. And I think that's useful, because why would you work in that field if you didn't think it was very important? But once they all get together, they have to work as equals, because each one of them is essential to the success of what you're doing, but none alone can do it. Now, design itself, designers are very proud of the designs they make, but designs are worthless. They're nice, they're pretty, they look nice, you can get prizes for them, but they're worthless until you actually implement it, you actually build it or do it. And to do that, you're going to have to bring in the other disciplines. And so it's really important that designers work and learn how to work with other disciplines. So, for example, I feel that we should teach people through projects, not through courses, because courses are going to be specialized. Projects require you to bring together disciplines, so you soon learn why you must bring in marketing, why you must bring in programming, why you must bring in mechanical engineers and material scientists, why you must bring in financial people, why you must bring in the politics of a company, of your environment, of your government, of the world, because all of those impact what you're able to do. And one of the things that happens when you actually are in industry and you try to build something, you have these wonderful ideas. And when you actually try to convince the company to do it, there's all sorts of reasons why you can't do it. May have to do with schedule, might have to do with competition from other companies, might have to do with the fact that it impinges on patents that are owned by other companies. It might have to do with compatibility with other goods that are manufactured by the same company. It has to do with a wide variety of things that really constrain what you're able to do. And so it's really important when you work in a company to understand what is required of all the other disciplines in that company. It'll make you a better designer. Now there's another problem. Designers seldom have any power in a company. Designers, even in the university, are usually never the most important school, never the most important field. And in a company, you're always in the middle. You're sort of the infrastructure. And design is badly misunderstood by almost everybody. Design museums don't help, because what design museums, they can't display the thinking process that we have that's so powerful. So they display beautiful objects. And therefore, the world thinks that design is making beautiful objects. And yeah, we do that. But that's not why we function. We function to make life better for people. And that's not understood. But it could be very powerful for a company if they only understood it, or for the government, for that matter. But how are they going to understand it when designers are so in love with the work they do is that they don't move up in the company. Sometimes designers complain to me that they're not promoted, and I ask, okay, what do you try to do to get promoted? Well, I try to explain the wonderful work we do, and I show them the models we're doing and some of our ideas and our sketches and all the awards we've won. And I say, well, I was a business executive, and if you came to me and told me that, I would say, yes, that's excellent. That's why we hired you. So now, excuse me, but I must get back to work. If you want to have an impact in the world, you have to demonstrate something that will change the world. You have to show, look, I've been thinking about what the company makes, and I think there's a real opportunity here. We have all the skills required to do this new activity. Well, that's only the start. Now, we teach our students, you have to understand the language of the people you're designing for. So you have an empathy with them, so you can communicate with them, so you know the end result fits their life. Well, what are the people that you're designing for is the company in which you work for. It's the people you work for. So you have to learn their language, and the language of business is finance, sales, marketing, margins. So you have to learn how to say, if you do this, here's how many you're going to sell, and here is what it will cost, and here is the profit you will make. Now, most of my design friends say, well, gee, how can I do that? It's a new thing. How can I say what will happen? And I say, this is what marketing does all the time. If you work at a company, you discover that a good deal of what you have to design is something that the marketing people insisted you put in. Well, how do they do it? Well, they make up numbers. They show the spreadsheet, and they made up all those numbers. They lie. And I say, why can't you learn to lie? Now, it's not really a lie. It's you're making it up. And if you don't know how to do it, ask marketing to help you. Because, look, the executives know that that's what you're doing. That's what they did as well. So they will say, okay, I see these numbers, but where did you get them from? What are the assumptions you made? So it's actually not that easy to make up the numbers because they have to be realistic. You have to be able to defend them. But that's how you make a difference in a company. And when you start getting promoted in a company, you're no longer just a designer. And as you get promoted higher, you're no longer a designer at all. You're still using your design skills to help the company. But what's important is you're also raising people's opinions of designers. Not everybody needs to be promoted like that, but enough so that every company should have a chief design officer. Every company should say, we cannot proceed without having someone at the executive level who shows us what we should be doing. And to do that, you have to understand the company and enjoy working there. So when I got promoted to be vice president of advanced technology, then I couldn't do any of the work that I normally was doing and that I had become known for. But I found the job to be wonderful. Not everybody would like it because you have to deal with a lot of different personalities and a lot of different issues. But I had people working on many, many different projects, and I just loved it. And many of the projects I didn't understand, and so I would make them come in and give me tutorials so that I would learn and understand, because we covered a wide range of areas. But at the same time, I also got to talk to people all across the world. I would fly to Japan to talk to people in Japan, go to Europe, talk to people, watch what they were doing, go to hospitals, try to understand how they were using the Apple computers, look at schools across the world. It was really valuable. And I even helped get the very first Wi-Fi band in the United States. I had to go to the Washington, D.C., talk to the Congress, walk the halls of Congress, talk to the Congress people, and more importantly, their staffs, and then testify before the Federal Communications Commission, which absolutely did not want to give us free bandwidth. They wanted to sell it. And we managed to convince them to give it free. And the same with high-definition television standards, where the television companies didn't want it because it would cost them more money. And if they did get it, well, they wanted to use it to have multiple channels so they could have more advertisements. And yet we managed to change what was happening. And so you have to understand politics to get things done. So design can do all this, but only if we step up to the plate. Now, let me talk about design education. I'm highly educated in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. I am strongly opposed to STEM education. Why? That simply continues the making of silos. And what we need to do is to get more people who understand what's really important in the world. You have to understand philosophy and history and ethics. You have to understand the arts. You have to understand a lot of things outside of your discipline. Now, when I was a student, I went to MIT, and I was required to take all these other courses in philosophy and history, etc. And I hated them, because I wanted to be an engineer and I wanted to design circuits. And I couldn't understand why I had to take all this other stuff. I wasn't interested. I didn't do well in the courses. Later on, when I was about 30 years old or so, I began to realize this is really important. And so I began to read and study and learn by myself. Also, because I was working in universities, I could talk to people in those departments and have them educate me, give me reading assignments and so on. So why is it that it really is important, but I couldn't recognize that when I started? And that's why I'm against STEM education, because it still keeps the same silos. And some people say, well, you should talk about STEAM. But no, that doesn't do it. Because, look, again, when I went to school, and this is still true the way we teach, you learn mathematics, and you learn basic physics, and you learn basic this and basic that. And nobody puts it all together. It's only after you had learned some mathematics, which you didn't understand why you were studying, that later on in the engineering course, they would be using that very same mathematics. Well, why didn't they teach me the mathematics when I needed it? The way to learn something is to know that you need it. The most important criterion of learning is you're motivated. You want to learn this material. And it helps if you struggle. So when I teach, here's what I do. On day one of the project, so I taught a bunch of business students, and here's how I taught business students who didn't know anything about design. On day one, I would give them an assignment that, the company you work for is in trouble. It's an automobile company, and they're just losing sales all over the place. And so we have to change things. And so normally we would introduce you to the company that you're working for, and it would take you a while to get used to things, but we're in a rush. So we've divided the company up into divisions, and each division is going to make proposals of things we should build, and then we'll choose the best one. So I'm going to divide the class up into divisions, and each group should go off and figure out what we should do next. And give me your results by next Monday. And these students are wonderful. They came back with wonderful spreadsheets and business models and pictures and so on. But they were all miserable as products. And I did that on purpose. I wanted them to fail, because then I could explain what you should really be doing. Did you ever watch people using cars? How do you do that? I mean, of course I've watched myself, how people drive cars. No, what about people who might buy the kind of cars you're talking about? Why don't you go to a parking lot and watch people coming in to go to the stores, and where they park, and what they carry with them. And when they come back, when they're loaded with groceries, and they're loaded with packages and so on, how do they get into the cars? Especially if they have 2 children and a baby, and they're all running around, and they're trying to unlock the car, and they're trying to hold on to their stuff. Or why don't you go watch people on the weekends and how they go off and use their cars for camping or for doing sports, and they have to unload lots of people and lots of equipment. Why don't you watch real people? And so But if I would have asked them at first, I don't think they would have done it. But now they went off and did that. They began to learn that, oh, people use things in different ways, and actually that maybe the same car is used very differently when you're just going back and forth to work than when in the weekend you're taking your whole family out. And so that was how I taught, like forcing people to do something badly so they would then understand why they had to read and learn some basic principles. Now, how do you do that in, say, design? Well, actually, I'm an advisor to the BITS Design School in Mumbai, India, newly formed school. And this is the second year. And what they did this year was wonderful. They took all the new students and they said, we want you to go into the local town and find some company and understand what they're doing. And you're going to spend the next 10 weeks working at that company. And the students hated it. Well, I want to do design. Why do I have to go and watch something buddy in a company, first of all? And second of all, I don't like to work in a group. I've never worked in a group before because all of elementary school, high school education requires you to work all by yourself. And then they would say, and we don't like my group members. I want to change groups. Can I change groups? And so they were told, nope. Because when you get a job, you don't have any choice about who's in the group. You have to learn to work with everybody. And so they didn't like it. But after a while, they came back and said, oh, we discovered all sorts of problems and we know what they should be doing. Okay, go back and work with them. Tell them what you found. And pretty soon they would come back and say, oh, those weren't the right problems, or those solutions don't work. But the point being, by thrusting them into the problem right ourselves, they began to appreciate, and they came back saying things like, oh, design is all about doing things for people, isn't it? It isn't about how good you can draw things. And they began to realize that, oh, we shouldn't jump to assumptions. And then when they asked the workers what they thought the problems were and what they thought the solutions were, they discovered everyone had a different idea. Well, that's life. And I think that that was a brilliant way of introducing people to design. That isn't the only course they were taking. They were doing a few others at the same time, which actually nicely integrated with what they were doing. But again, by thrusting them, not by lecturing to them, but by giving them a problem that they were not equipped to solve right away, it made them really learn. And my favorite response of one of the students is, I didn't like this course at all. You didn't teach me anything. I had to learn it all by myself. Yes, we succeeded. When you learn it by yourself, you remember it. So, let me see, what else do I want to talk about? I've actually covered everything I wanted to cover. So I don't know what the schedule is. If there is still time, I'd like to answer any questions. Is there time? No, there's no. So we'll have to wait for the panel discussion. Thank you.